Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about the different elements in graphic design. We've had an overview of typography, which I feel is the hardest thing to grasp when it comes to graphic design. I think all the other things kind of um, we tend to experiment more with those things than typography, but now I would like to go back to the basics. So, what is graphic design? Graphic design is a visual language used to convey a message to an audience. So we're not just creating pretty pictures. I think that a lot of people have the misconception that we're just putting things together that look pretty or harmonious, but really it's mainly to communicate, and how we do that and how effective we do that is very important. The study of graphic design and art history helps us better understand how we arrived at the present, how how we come as we are. So we're going to have a little bit of a brief history of the beginning of time, basically. The need for communication outside of dialogue gave way to the creation of symbols and drawings. Symbols were seen more as forms of communication than decoration. So before it became art, this was the way a lot of people communicated. Like we do, prehistoric people often represented their world and beliefs through visual images. We owe a lot of our documented history to symbols and art. So a lot of what we know is because of art. Um, so I think that it's a lot of people don't notice that, and it's very important that a lot of what we have in our history books is what was left behind by visual artists. Font history. The Romans created a formal script for important manuscripts and official documents. In the Roman alphabet, serifs, which we talked about before, originated with the carving of words into stone, adding little hooks to the tips of letters to prevent the chisel from slipping. So that's how the serif came about, but now when we look at that, it has a very classic look. Fonts were later designed to create a faster way to produce books with the printing press. The print enabled solidified information to be shared amongst the masses rather than word of mouth. At the time that print was first introduced, much of the books were religious and regulated by the church. Okay, so the history of graphic design. In the late 1800s, posters advertised Parisian nightlife in theaters and cafes. Prints were so popular they were stolen off the walls almost as soon as they were hung. And I love these type of posters. I mean, I would probably be one of those people that would have collected one of those things. It's probably worth a lot of money by now, like the original prints. So in the late 1920s, the industrial age ushered in a new era of promotions. So we see how it's evolving. So in the beginning, it was necessary to communicate visually. And then we began to promote it. Actually, before we even began to promote it, art, like painting and all of that, before they had cameras, that was the way that people got, let's say, a family portrait or something like that. It wasn't until later that artists began to express themselves with art. And then we began to promote products. In the late 1940s, World War, public service messages, posters, and propaganda emerged. Posters were used to inspire or shame people into joining up the army or whatever armed forces. In the 1950s, new beginnings, new products, a new era of design. So I think that's when we started to get more into designing products. So product design was becoming more popular. In the 1960s, modernism and pop art movement blurred the lines between art and commerce. So that's where we get pop art. It's you would have to look into that. It's a very interesting era. I used to not understand it. I would always look at what Andy Warhol did here, or the Marilyn Monroe types of prints, and I just didn't understand it. But the more I saw his work, I really appreciated it. And Roy Lichtenstein here, just getting the essence of comic strips. Now I really enjoy that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's that's art now. So I think a lot of people had a hard time accepting that. But I don't know, the more you hear about the artists and what their motives are, I think the more you begin to understand it. Okay, so the 1970s and 80s, new generations of designers influenced by free thinking design. So as you can see, Photoshop is starting to emerge. So you get to see, I think people get really excited, the making something look like, I mean, how easy it is to do gradients, make it look like gold and add sparkles and rainbows and all kinds of stuff. So it's fun, but I think after a while it's a little bit too much. I actually like the older, very very simplistic type of design, and it's more based on they relied more on creativity and composition. And sometimes when you get the Photoshop tool, it's great for what it is, but sometimes it might hinder your creativity. So 1990 and beyond, where to next? So here we have some examples. David Carson, he was a very popular artist and the graphic designer in the 1990s. And then we start to see now how important it is to brand a person or a campaign. I mean, these things, I mean, I think recently they've been getting more and more popular. I think Obama really made it a very good point of, I mean, he even has his own logo and he did a great job promoting and branding his campaign. So I think that a lot of other politicians have taken note of that. And so I think that puts us designers into, people are noticing how important it is, to have a clean presentation and branding yourself. So even a person can be branded, and it's very important. Okay, so why are we designers? I found this artist. He is amazing. I uploaded a YouTube video of this project that he has here onto the project folder. His name is Stefan Sagmeister, and I love this quote. He says, "My goal for the rest of my life is to touch someone's heart with design." I mean, that's how passionate of a graphic designer he is. So check out the video. It's very short, like a minute or something like that. It's a great project piece he has. It should inspire you. Why design matters. Okay, so there's, like I said before, design is everywhere, but let's just go over some points. So businesses need to stand out and be seen by marketing and advertising. So even if the economy is going bad, if you have a great product, you still need to promote it. You need to be seen. You need to communicate it. So as graphic designers and marketing, they go hand in hand, and businesses need us. So no matter what, maybe they'll cut down on the graphic design department, but they're always going to need marketing because it's essential for a business to survive. So it promotes developments of goods. It creates first impressions. So first impressions, as we all know, is very important. So creating a very clean and just consistent look is just very important. Good design gives credibility, visibility, and consistency. So if you see a commercial on television, that gives it credibility. And then when you go to the grocery store, you associate with the commercial you saw, and it just gives you a form of consistency and familiarity, and you feel more comfortable with the product. It informs the public. So not only does it inform it of the product, but graphic design also informs the public, as in public transportation or very important information to get around. Let's say if you're at the airport. That's very essential. And I just love it when I go to an airport and they've done such a great job with, they put um, a lot of emphasis to detail and importance in the design. I just love when things are practical and they're easy. It just makes it so much better. So graphic design, as I've said before, is very important. So the designer's role is to clarify, to simplify, and to make information accessible. The information conveyed needs to be in a form that the user can understand and use meaningfully. So what we communicate, like I said before, it's not just to make things look pretty, but to also make them aesthetically pleasing, but at the same time for it to be practical and to communicate an idea or information in a clean manner, in a very direct and practical manner. Okay, so design solution components. This is kind of like the process you go through every time you decide to design something. So first we have strategy. You have to have a plan. You have to understand the problem and you have to gather information. So you have to do your research. So whether it is a project that I'm giving you, or if it's a client that you have, if you're freelancing, or if it's at your job, you have to ask questions. You have to dig for information and then do some research. Then we go into concept. Think through various ideas, the underlying thought. Don't, because your mind can go everywhere. Make sure that you keep the underlying thought at base. Okay, so always go back to where you started, because your mind could start wandering off in different directions and you might completely miss it. Think by sketching and writing. This always helps me. I started as an artist, drawing mainly and painting, and then I got into graphic design, and then I got so into graphic design that I forgot about my drawing skills, and now I'm trying to go back. But when I started, I did start off with sketching and writing a lot, and I still do that, but not as much as I used to. But I still need to sketch before I start a project, even if it doesn't make any sense to anybody else. Even if it's like boxes and text or something like that, I need that for me. It must be fresh and effective. Okay, you can't go around copying other people. You can use that as an inspiration, but you can't copy other people's work. I collect other people's work for inspiration, like when I show you examples, that's so you can get inspired or get an idea, but you can't, it's like plagiarizing if you get something completely the same and just copy and paste or something like that. Okay, 3, design. Choose a style. We've talked about that. Is it going to be conservative? Is it going to be trendy? Is it going to be urban? You have to just brainstorm and see how you can bring the right type of fonts and the right types of pictures together. Integration of concept and visual elements includes types, photos, illustrations, and graphics. Okay, that's when you start designing and playing with different components. Okay, so production. Use the software InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop. Those are the main programs that graphic designers use. So it's okay if you know other ones, but when you start looking for jobs and you start doing work, let's say on your own even, these are what the printers have available, and these are just the Adobe Suite is the professional way uh, to design things. So if you have other programs, that's fine, but the Adobe Suite is the way to go. Proof your job. It's so important. I mean, I know as graphic designers, I used to have a student that would say, I just see shapes. You have to make sure that you don't have a typo in your title. That is so embarrassing. So just hit the check for spelling, and you'll see little mistakes that you didn't catch, or ask someone to read it for you, or something like that. Because if you're designing something and you're going to send it to print, and you have so many copies that you're going to make, it's just horrible when you have a typo or a mistake. Prepare for output. You have to make sure that you know how to set up your file to give that over to the printer. Okay, if you don't, the printer's going to be very frustrated with you. Execution. Complete the final piece and communicate with the printer. So we're going to have a whole different video about the printer, because there's different ways to design for web, and there's different ways to design for print, and they're completely different. Okay, so unless you're going to be a web designer, you don't have to worry about print. But if you're going to be designing for print, it's very important that you know all kinds of details with it. I personally had to stop what I was doing, and I worked for a printer for a year because I was just making such amateur mistakes. But I'm gonna try to teach you everything that I can so you won't be making those costly mistakes to your employer. Okay? Principles of design. Okay, when composing with formal elements, you utilize basic design principles. Principles of design are added in combination with type, image integration, and concept generation. So you have a concept, you integrate images and type, and your design elements added to that, and that's what makes a graphic designer a graphic designer. Otherwise, people really, I don't like it when people tell me, oh, you're a graphic designer, you just put pretty pictures together and fonts or whatever. No, it's a lot more than that. Okay? So one of the design elements is lines. Okay, so we have all kinds of different types of lines. One of them is you have curved, and we have straight lines. So the curved lines, I've heard someone say that the curved lines, like, women are more attracted to curved lines, more organic and curved, and I mean, if you look at this picture right here, you can see it just has more of a feminine feel. And men are more attracted to these bold, straight lines, and you can see why. So line is included among the formal elements of design because it has many roles to play in composition and communication. So lines is another added component to your designs that can really add a lot of depth and just different types of feeling. Then we have organic. I love when people draw lines over an image and it just kind of goes together. So, and then we have wavy, which I thought wavy and curved lines could be more feminine, but in this case, added with the sport, it just really complements it. So I think it looks, it's just an added element. Otherwise, it's just a photo and type. But with all the things put together, I think it just it makes it a little bit more interesting. This one is zigzag. So I really like the way that they did this here. Just, you know, how can you bring these type of elements into your design? So maybe some of these are bringing ideas to how you can design. Let's say we're doing a poster or something like that. These are just different ideas of how to incorporate line in your designs. Then we have spiral. So I think that also gives it a very elegant look. The thinner they are, the more elegant, and the bolder they are, the more rough they look. Then we have dots. I think I've seen a lot of different designs with dots, and I think they make a very nice composition or a very nice added element to a composition. That's what I meant to say. So just experiment with one of these types of elements because sometimes you don't know what to do. Okay, do I just put images and type together? Well, you can add these extra components or keep these elements in mind when you design. Okay, so we have scale and proportion. I've talked about this in typography. Um, and I think that sometimes we're so used to designing small little things in the middle of the paper. So I really challenge you to have some things completely go out of the page, and play around with scale and proportion because that's what I used to do. I used to always put um, just small elements in the middle of the page, and then nothing just got your attention. But um, when you kind of play with the scale, I think it really it catches your attention. It brings you in, and you want to know more about it. Okay, so in design, scale is the size of the element or form seen in relation to other elements or forms within the format. Or another way that you can get attention is choosing pictures that are very close up. When you choose something like, let's say, a close up of somebody's face or their expression, or close up of an object, it just makes it's another way of drawing someone in. Okay, so don't be afraid to play with these types of elements. They really, really help. Okay, so now we have balance. Balance in graphic design can be achieved by adjusting the visual weight of each element. So visually, we do see balance in design. Like, you might not notice that there was such a thing. When we think of balance, we think of weight, but there is visual weight as well. So there's symmetric balance and asymmetric balance. So the symmetric balance is more of a mirror image. And even in this poster, I mean, this one's more obvious, but even in this poster, there's two people and there's even amount of elements on the left and on the right. And then asymmetric balance, you'll have more of a negative space than a positive space, but even then I feel like those negative and positive kind of balance each other out. And that's the same thing here. I feel like this positive space is kind of balanced out by the negative. So it's just another thing to keep in mind. So balance can also be done through colors. So if you have like specks of color, like here the blue, you can see like that it takes a special amount of weight. The darker the colors, the heavier they feel. And then shapes, like this shape here, it balances off again, like I said before, with the negative green shape in the background. So shapes and color can add to your balance. Then we have emphasis and hierarchy. Okay, so a lot of us, when we want to design, we want to start, we tend to put, let's say, because what hierarchy means, it means that, okay, so I'm going to read it here. Visual hierarchy, the elements are arranged according to emphasis. Where do you look first, second, or third? Where do you want someone to look first? So the first thing we want someone to look at is the title, usually, right? So what do? We usually put it at the top and we center it. Well, that is sometimes it works. Like here, it's at the top, but it's left aligned. And sometimes it's a little boring. So in this aspect right here, it's like, how do you create hierarchy? Like in this case, this has a focal point. What is the designer? You're basically the designer is a conductor. So what is this? What does the designer want you to look at first? So your eye immediately goes to the black, because I said the black is the it has more weight. So your eye is gonna go where you see where it's really bold. So it's not in the dead center, but that's where your eye goes. Okay, so um, I really would like for you guys to play around with that. So um, just because it's the title does not mean it has to be the biggest thing, and it does not have to be at the very top and in the center. Okay, so there's different ways to achieve hierarchy. So in this case, it's because they built a lot of chaos around, and in the center, they they have the emphasis, the focal point, which is the darkest. So if you play with colors along with different shapes, our eye is going to go where you want it to go. Okay, so what is the first thing you want to see? Yes, it's the title. Does it have to be at the very top? No. Um, and then the second thing we probably want to see, let's say there's a subtitle. You just have to play around so it doesn't get lost if you have a lot of different components there. And then maybe you want the author, or if it's a book design, you want the author, and you probably make that a little bit smaller. Okay, so it's just gonna take a lot of trial and error, but I encourage you to think outside the box every single time, just so you develop your own style and you begin to play with all of these different elements. So next we have rhythm. Okay, so rhythm is a pattern that is created by repeating or varying elements. And rhythm creates movement, so similar to a beat of music, which causes the viewer's eyes to move around the page. I found a lot of these collages by Graham Moore. This is the artist. And it reminds me of how I started graphic design. I was so afraid of the computer, to be honest with you. I was just always sketching. So what I did, I would always cut up um, magazines, or I would cut up different types of things, and then I would photocopy them, and I would just play around with um, with my designs that way. And I felt more comfortable if I was touching things and like moving them exactly where I wanted it, and it created texture, and I really liked it that way. But I had to learn the programs. I was afraid of the programs, um, but this really reminds me of the kind of the kind of projects I used to give myself, and I think this really this artist really gets to achieve rhythm through the way he cuts these up. And here's some more examples. I just wanted to show you. It looks like music to me, just visually. So rhythm is used to help create a flow from one element to another and add a visual pulsating excitement and flow. And I think by using these colors and shapes and all kinds of texture, it really does, to me, create pulsating excitement to the eye. Okay, so next is unity. Unity is about designing a whole in which elements relate to one another. So here we have, this is the front cover of a magazine, and it just has so many different components, illustrations, but there's unity in the style of the elements and the colors. There's a color palette. So correspondence, it's repeating elements that establish a visual connection, and like color, shape, texture, and direction. So continuity, handling elements in a similar way to establish a family. As you can see, it really does look united, as if it's all part of the same family. Okay, so moving on with Unity, getting type and visuals to work together as a cohesive unit. Okay, so in this example, we have a picture of a player, but the type really complements the photo. So that's one thing that you should look out for. Is your typography going really well with your photography? So, or the photos that you choose. So it's not just putting text and type together. It's knowing what kind of elements you can add to it, and uh, um, and finding good type. I mean, I think this looks very simple, but this type right here looks very sporty. So the mind attempts to create order and make connections and see a whole by grouping. So that's just the way that we function. So we create flow. Elements should be arranged so that the eye moves from one element to the other. So this right here looks like a family because there's elements that are repeated. You know, the colors in the photo, along with a background of another photo, um, and different the same kind of color palette used in the text as it is in the photo. So that's another way of making something look cohesive. So it's just in the way we try and see how they're just not afraid of the scale of the title, and how it's not at the very top centered, it's at the bottom. I think that just makes it, draws you in even more, and it's so simple. So you know, these are just different examples. Okay, so another design elements is graphic space, the manipulation of elements on the page to create a powerful, effective design. So the playing with negative and positive shapes, and they're just as important as, you know, let's not forget about the negative space. It's just as important as the positive. The positive and negative space, what is not there is just as important as what is. In this case, this is for Romeo and Juliet. Their silhouette is creating a dagger and a heart. So it really emphasizes what it's about. Okay. Elements of illusion. So we tend to see graphic elements in terms of three main planes: the foreground, the part of the composition that appears nearest to the viewer; the middle ground, the intermediate position; and the background, which appears in the distance. Perspective: diagonals moving toward to a point on the horizon to create an illusion of spatial depth. So you can create depth with just, let's say, if you had fonts, and like the bigger fonts would look like they're more in the foreground, and if you keep on adding smaller and smaller fonts, it just kind of looks like it's receding into the horizon. Okay, so you can create depth even, and with colors too. Like the farther away things are, they look a little bit lighter. Spatial depth, the appearance of three-dimensional space, and scale. It appears to make an image move backwards or forwards on the page. So, for instance, this car right here appears to be closer because it's bigger, and the little ones in the back look like they're farther away. So, those are just elements of illusion. Okay? Visual optical illusions. All right, so these are just some points I wanted to talk about. We're going to get more into detail about print in another video, but I wanted to talk about the web versus print. So in terms of color with web, if you're working in Photoshop, you should make sure that if you're creating photos or any images for the web, that they're RGB. And the RGB stands for the primary colors of red, green, and blue. And for print, the primary colors for print is CMYK, and that is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Okay, so if you're working on in Photoshop, if you're working on something that you're going to print, make sure that they're CMYK. And the resolution for web is 72 dpi, and the resolution for print is 300 dpi. Now, the reason that the resolution for the web is 72 is because you want a lower resolution because that creates a faster viewing of images to load on the internet. So if you have something that's 300 dpi and you upload it, it's going to take a long time to render, and nobody has any time to wait and let something render. You know, our attention span is very short. So something that is 72 dpi at 100%, it looks fine on the screen. So that's what it's for. But if you try to design with something that you got from the web and it's 72 dpi and it's like very small, it's going to print horrendous. Okay, so you have to make sure that your files are 300 dpi, and I'm just letting you know this because when you start working for somebody, or if you go and you do your own business, it is very important that you understand that if they want you to use photos, you ask them, do you have any photos of you know, whatever that you are designing, and do you have them at 300 dpi, and that's what I need. If not, then you might want to purchase some photos from iStock or stock photography website, and you have to make sure that you get the largest photo if you're going to use it in a large scale. Make sure that you get a large photo if you're going to print. Okay, so that's very important. And then the file formats for the web are JPEG, PNG, and GIF. So JPEG is, I think I've heard that that's the best resolution for images. PNG and GIF actually allow you to upload something without a background. Okay, so JPEG, it always goes into, if you think it doesn't have a background, it probably has a white background. So you either have to get a PNG or a GIF. And a GIF you can animate. So there's ways that you can animate a GIF. Then for print, these are the ones that you would need. Mainly, it's TIFF, file, and EPS, which you can probably open and manipulate in Illustrator or Photoshop, an AI, which is Adobe Illustrator, a PSD, which is Photoshop, and a PDF. And usually a PDF works best for any type of printer or computer to be able to open. If you send somebody a PSD or an AI or an EPS or TIFF, they might not have the proper software to open those files. So that's why a PDF seems to be the best one. Okay. Now we kind of talked a little bit about the color psychology, and I wanted to go over this a little bit because I want you to understand that although we all might have our favorite color, it is important that as graphic designers we don't put ourselves in a box, that we don't you know, that if I like pink like I'm wearing today that I don't design everything in pink, because I might have a client, and this has happened to me before. I had a client that he needed somebody that went over to our school, and they were looking for some students to see if when I was a student, they wanted to see if somebody could make some t-shirt designs, and I really wanted to do it, but it was for sports. So he looks at my portfolio and he says, well, I don't see anything here that's very masculine. And that was my fault, because I had, not that everything was very feminine for me, but he just didn't see anything that was sporty. Okay, so Just make sure that you challenge yourself and try to do something completely different next time. If you wanted to, like, even if you're a guy, make sure that one day that you do design something that's a little bit more feminine, let's say for a spa, or like, I'm just throwing it out there, like maybe a trifle brochure for a spa or something like that, just so you don't get yourself in a box and someone says to you one day, well, everything you do just kind of looks the same, or you look like you design more for guys, or you look like you design more for girls. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right. So, having said that, the psychology of color, it affects the mood of the viewer or the consumer. But the very interesting part of it is sometimes I don't like to talk about it too much because it changes a lot from place to place. And in some countries, a certain color can mean a completely different thing than in this country. So it's a hard thing to know, but we live in America, and this is the psychology in our country. Okay, so for instance, black is considered either sinister, or it could be sexy or dangerous, mysterious. It could convey authority and power. It could be stylish and timeless. So authority and power, I think that's why I said when you design, your eye goes straight to black. I mean, that just demands authority. Okay, so it just does. It's the heaviest. It's the darkest of colors, so it's heavy. The softer the color, like if it's a pastel, the lighter the color is, the more we're not going to pay attention to it. But if it's darker, like black, our eye is going to immediately go there. Okay, so the whole sinister and mysterious, I mean, shadows. It just reminds me of shadows. Stylish and timeless. I've heard that black is stylish in terms of fashion because some people feel that they might look even thinner in black, which I think there is some truth to that. If you try putting on some black pants and then try to put some white pants, you'll see the difference. So I think there's some truth to that. It's so funny because I lived in New York for a while, and everybody there really loves black. So I went ahead and I did it. I like it. And then when I come here, some people think that black is just too, is, I mean, I don't know. Like, there's not enough color, but it just depends on your style. Okay. Okay, so red, the most emotionally intense color. Red stimulates a faster heartbeat and breathing. I've heard if like someone wears red that it stimulates the heartbeat and breathing, but that's I think there's some truth to that too. There's a study that was done, and I think that there's a reason why they said that. Okay, so it conveys aggression, passion, violence, and conquest. It's a stimulating color. Um, so aggression and passion and violent. I mean, I think it's because it's a color of blood. I can't even say it, blood. so so that's why you could have a black and white photo or something, and if you have a splash of red or like red text, it really could look like a violent piece, just depending on um, how you treat it. It could look violent. Stimulating color, red, orange, and yellow. If you notice a lot of, and I think I've said this before, but if you notice a lot of food chains have red, yellow, and orange, is because they know that it stimulates the appetite. So I think I've heard that blue is the one that doesn't stimulate the appetite. So if you try eating on a blue or maybe black plate, it might, see how that works. I don't know if what it would do if it just does not make you want to eat, or I don't know. But you don't see that many blue dishes, I don't think. I'm not sure. Okay, so orange. It's happy, festive, and bright. When I think of that, I think of citrus. I think of the summer with like the sun and orange and lemonade. That's what I think of. Yellow, vitality, optimism, health, and sunshine. Attention getting color. Um, I know it's an attention getting color. Like, why do you think a lot of road signs are in yellow? Because they you your eye goes to yellow, and a lot of traffic signs in taxi cabs. Well, there's a lot of taxi cabs in New York, but there are some here too. But that's why they're yellow because they don't blend in. You'll notice them right away. Green, nature, purity, cleanliness, environmentally conscious. A lot of logos are going green because of the environmentally conscious aspect of it. Purple, the color of royalty, regal, and daring. Pink, youth, feminine, love, romance, calming effect. Okay, so um, I love pink, but don't always design in pink. Okay, so otherwise it will end up looking young and feminine, love and romance, and you don't want to always convey that. Okay, so challenge yourself and try doing something different too. And that's why I was saying, some of you be very, very careful when you pick a logo and you pick certain colors and certain aspects of your logo to for it to look too feminine. You know. Blue. The dark blue is calming and traditional. The light blue is calming, breezy, cleanliness, like a clear blue sky, or I think of ocean as well. White, there's innocence, purity, and sterility. Sterility. Okay, for instance, like the way that doctors or scientists, they wear their white lab coats. Okay, so that concludes this presentation. Just wanted to go over all these different elements, and I hope that this helps with all of your projects. Okay, so all right. Well, thank you for listening. See you next time. Bye.